If you're listening to this deep dive, I think it's almost a guarantee that you have felt it.
Oh, that deep, sinking frustration.
That profound, sinking frustration about the housing crisis. We see the numbers, right? Rents are just punishing, prices are completely out of reach, and new supply. Well, it just can't keep up.
But that's not even the most maddening part, is it?
No. The real kicker is that everyone agrees the system is broken. I mean, everyone, from the average renter all the way up to, a central bank economist.
Yet,
And yet nothing moves. We're just stuck. Stuck in this exhausting state of perpetual agreement and, frankly, collective failure.
for you, the listener, just trying to understand what's going on, that deadlock is probably the most confusing part of this whole situation.
Exactly. You start looking for the obvious villain, right? The greedy landlord, the short-sighted zoning board. But what if the problem isn't really about villainy? Or even a lack of funding?
What if we're misdiagnosing the core issue? That is precisely what the sources we pulled together for today are getting at. They argue this isn't a simple shortage problem anymore. They frame it beautifully in this one piece. It's called The Housing Standoff, Breaking the Scarcity Trap.
A housing standoff.
Yeah. And what they're saying is that what we're experiencing is a very specific kind of societal deadlock, a Mexican standoff, where all the key actors are paralyzed.
But not by greed.
Not by greed, but by mutual caution.
Okay, let's unpack this. So our mission today is to figure out why waiting, why that feels like the only genuinely sensible choice for almost everyone involved.
And then, crucially, figure out where the actual solutions must lie if we're ever going to break that stalemate.
So we spend all this time looking for, reckless behavior, who's inflating the market, who's holding back supply.
Right, who's the bad guy?
Exactly. But this research, it highlights a really surprising pattern when you zoom out. It's not recklessness that's causing the freeze. It's universal caution. Everyone is just waiting.
And what's so fascinating here is that every single one of these actors is making a decision that is, for them, individually rational.
It makes sense for them.
It makes perfect sense. But when all those rational decisions pile up, they create this terrible collective outcome. It's a closed loop where self-protection leads directly to system failure.
Okay, walk us through that loop, because I think the comprehensive nature of this paralysis is the biggest takeaway here. Let's start with the people who actually build the homes. Why are they hesitant?
Well, builders and developers, they're waiting for clarity. Clarity on prices, on regulation. They have massive amounts of capital exposed.
Of course.
So if they start a multi-year project today, they're making a huge bet. A bet that costs labor, materials, financing will hold steady.
And that demand will still be there to meet their high asking price when they're finally done.
Precisely. So they're waiting for market safety.
Okay, so if they don't move, the next logical actor is the landowner. They're sitting on these undeveloped parcels. What's their incentive to hold back?
Their incentive is huge. Landowners are waiting for property values to appreciate just a little bit more.
Right. If scarcity is driving up prices month after month, why sell today?
You wouldn't. Waiting literally maximizes their return. The system rewards them for scarcity.
And the big investors, the huge institutional funds, they seem like they should be rushing in to fill this gap.
You'd think so, but they're waiting for certainty. They will not commit billions to residential development in an environment where, interest rates or regulatory frameworks might pivot on a dime.
Unpredictability is their enemy.
It's the enemy of major capital deployment. Absolutely.
Okay, now let's talk about the people at the sharp end of this, the everyday buyers and renters. They're desperate, but they're also being cautious, aren't they?
They are, absolutely. Buyers are waiting for prices to stop running away from them, or maybe they're waiting for some catastrophic correction that might never even come.
They're more afraid of overpaying than they are of continuing to rent.
Exactly. And the renters, my goodness, they're waiting for anything. Literally any new policy, any new construction, anything that might just alleviate this crushing pressure.
And that leaves the politicians, the ones who are supposed to fix it. You said they're waiting for someone else to take the risk. That sounds cynical, but it also sounds rational.
It is entirely rational within a political cycle. Any politician who proposes a hard, structural solution like, say, aggressively upzoning an entire city, they know they're going to face immediate fierce opposition.
From local constituents.
From the people who vote. So they wait for political cover. Or they wait for the problem to become so dire that the risk of doing nothing finally outweighs the risk of doing something.
So if everyone is paralyzed by this caution, it raises the central paradox of the whole thing. Why does moving first feel like losing?
Because In a system that's defined by scarcity and, frankly, incredibly high stakes, moving first carries this specific set of risks, and it goes beyond just financial exposure.
It's the risk of what?
It's the risk of taking the blame if it goes wrong.
And with housing, I mean, that's the foundational asset for millions of people. It's their wealth, their retirement, their family's stability. So the cost of taking the blame it's potentially devastating.
Let's just run a quick example. Imagine a builder commits capital, starts construction on a big suburban project, all based on current inflation levels.
Okay.
Suddenly, the interest rate environment shifts, or local resistance slows down their permits by a year. If they're the first one to finish building and the market softens even just a little bit,
They're the ones left holding all this inventory that costs too much.
they lose. And everyone else who waited, they learn a lesson.
The lesson being, delay pays.
Exactly.
Wait, so this paralysis is actually a rational choice for the individual. That just seems insane given where it's gotten us.
It is the absolute definition of a scarcity trap. The immediate costs of acting are concrete and they're localized. The benefits are diffuse and they're delayed.
And the research highlights this effect of scarcity. It makes the entire system, what was the word? Brittle.
Brittle. That concept's so key.
The sources use this incredible analogy that housing stops being just expensive and starts feeling like a game of Jenga.
The Jenga analogy is perfect.
Yeah.
It captures the mood exactly. Think about why housing is so brittle. It's because it touches everything.
Right.
If you change the zoning of one block to allow for 100 new apartments, you're not just adjusting density. You're seen as messing with the life savings of the homeowner next door.
And the school capacity, the traffic flow.
The local political balance, everything.
So every single decision feels connected to every other decision. If you touch one piece of the structure, there's this immediate, terrifying fear you might knock the whole thing over.
And that fear leads directly to paralysis. Instead of coordinated action, you get decision makers who just sort of hover. They, tweak a bit here, pause a bit there.
And promise action later.
Always later. Because the consequences of getting it wrong, the systemic collapse in housing, are simply too huge to contemplate. So we get a coordinated halt instead of coordinated action.
Okay, so if we accept this diagnosis, that universal caution is the actual mechanism of failure, then the traditional solutions start to sound pretty thin.
They really do.
Like, if everyone is waiting, why does the idea of just let the market fix it suddenly stop making any sense?
Because the central argument here seems to be that markets are fundamentally ill-equipped to coordinate risk across millions of unaligned actors. Markets are fantastic at responding to signals like price.
But they're terrible at coordinating a massive simultaneous de-risking strategy.
Exactly. We see it every day. One builder puts up 1,000 homes in a city of 5 million people. They take on all this financial risk, but they achieve what? A negligible systemic impact?
Right.
No single actor, even a really big one, can stabilize a national shortage or guarantee future affordability. And let's be honest, we actively legislate against that kind of coordination. We don't want builders colluding on prices.
Because that's a cartel.
Right. It's usually bad for consumers. And this dilemma, it's reinforced by all the recent government reviews. You have lots of separate actors, each behaving sensibly for themselves, and they still produce these tragic outcomes overall.
So it's not a failure of character, it's just how an uncoordinated system behaves when it's facing critical scarcity.
Exactly.
So if the market can't coordinate its way out of the risk, the next logical question is, why can't governments just force the solution?
And that brings us right back to the political payoff problem, which is, I think, the most difficult hurdle of all.
Explain that.
Any meaningful move, any hard structural reset like implementing aggressive land value taxes to force landowners to build or sell.
Okay.
That move creates immediate, very vocal losers.
Help me understand that timing gap a bit better. Who are the immediate losers?
Well, think about the NMBY opposition to a big infrastructure project, like a new transit line needed to unlock development far from the city center.
Okay, I can picture that.
The people living along that proposed route, they face immediate disruption. Higher temporary taxes, changes to their neighborhood, they're angry, and they vote today.
And the benefit, the stable, affordable housing that could actually solve the crisis, that won't be realized for, what, 5, 10, maybe 15 years?
Long after the current politician is out of office.
Correct.
So the political default becomes...
To announce ambition, we need to build 1.5 million homes.
Yeah.
But then you just tinker at the edges with minor grants or zoning variances. You avoid anything that looks like a high-risk, hard reset.
Because the incentive structure rewards caution. It rewards small, incremental moves that keep the standoff intact.
Yeah.
Why break the glass if someone else will get blamed for the shards?
That sounds incredibly cynical, but it explains so much of the inaction we see.
So what does this all mean for the solutions? If blame won't work, and if patience is just making things worse, and if hoping people will just magically change their self-protective behavior is naive, what actually breaks a scarcity standoff? The answer has to be systemic. The sources are really clear on this. Standoffs only break when something fundamentally changes the payoffs.
Changes the payoffs.
Yes. The core tension has to be dissolved. We have to design mechanisms that make waiting stop feeling like the safest, most profitable option.
So we have to create conditions where moving first doesn't feel like volunteering for all the pain and the blame.
Where the risk of delay is demonstrably higher than the risk of action.
Exactly. The research concludes that the solution isn't in persuading people to be more civic-minded or to be better builders. It's in fundamentally changing the conditions they're responding to.
It's focusing on structure, not character.
That shifts the entire conversation, doesn't it? If the problem isn't bad actors or ignorance or even a lack of money, then we have to move toward a very specific, coordinated question.
And that hard question is, what would actually make it safe for everyone, the landowners, the builders, the investors, the policymakers, to all move at the same time?
We need risk coordination on a national scale.
That is the missing ingredient. That large-scale risk coordination, the inability to manage that mutual caution. That's the engine of the crisis.
So thinking about housing not as a purely market commodity, but more like essential national infrastructure.
Which the sources suggest people are starting to agree on, even if the policy hasn't quite caught up yet. It's the necessary starting point.
It requires acknowledging that the crisis is so profound that we need solutions that coordinate that action. Maybe through mechanisms that backstop risk or that actively penalize the hoarding of necessary resources.
We have to change the game.
This deep dive into the housing standoff has been incredibly clarifying. We've seen how this paradox of universal caution just paralyzes the whole system.
Creating that Jenga effect where the fear of instability causes total inaction.
And we've learned that the ultimate solution isn't about finding better people, but about changing the conditions and the payoffs they respond to.
That's the only real path forward, true, stable progress.
The goal now is figuring out how to achieve that critical mass of movement without, as the source says, breaking the people already inside it. We need stability to facilitate change, not more chaos.
We need to design the escape route.
So we'll leave you with this final provocative thought. Given that the solution requires changing the conditions people respond to, not their character, what is one specific non-persuasive mechanism that would instantly make movement less risky than delay for the majority of the actors we just discussed?
Think about that political payoff problem and the landowner's incentive. What single structural change could force simultaneous action?
We'll be waiting to see where you take that thought.